Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast. We are recapping the NFL draft. We're going to look at winners and losers. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks, and we're going to close out the episode today talking about the Aaron Rodgers debacle in Green Bay. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast.
From Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network, you're listening to the Sports Stove Podcast with your host, Vince Stover.
Welcome into today's Sports Stove Podcast. And today I am joined by the minority owner of the Green Bay Packers. Well, one of the millions. My dad, Dale Stover. Dad, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much. It was an exciting draft.
It really was an exciting draft. I really enjoyed myself. Got to do a lot of draft coverage, helping with Belly Up Fantasy Live's draft coverage. And I want to shout out to Dan Mader. He's the lead guy there at Belly Up Fantasy, and he put on a great show during the draft, the first 3 rounds, and a lot of work went into that. So great job, Dan, and thank you for letting me on in that program as well. And it was a lot of fun talking draft, keeping up with everything that was going on in the draft was quite exciting. What do I say? The first 15 picks in the first round were really just kind of held the attention of what was going on there during the draft. And then I thought the first 3 rounds were really exciting, pretty much all the way through as well. Dad, we were talking before we came on here today about our mock drafts. Of course, mine was recorded for the world to hold me accountable. I got 10 picks correct, meaning that they were matched to the correct team, 24 players correct in the first round. I got 6 out of the first 7 picks correct. I missed the San Francisco pick. I had been pounding the table for weeks saying San Francisco is going to take Trey Lance, but at the end of the day, I fell for the smoke and went with Mac Jones. My other picks that I was proud of, Darrisaw to the Vikings, Jamin Davis to Washington, Kwity Paye to Indianapolis, Najee Harris, of course, everybody had that, to Pittsburgh as well, were all picks that I was pretty proud of. I almost got Joe Tryon correct. I had him going 31 to the Ravens. He went 32 to Tampa, but nonetheless. And you said you got 9 correct, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
9 correct.
And 27 in the round, so...
Yeah, that's really good. I was giving you the numbers before. Let me find them again. Peter King got 9 correct. Todd McShay had 9 correct. Mel Kiper had 5 correct. And Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network had 4 correct. So we beat them, and pretty proud of that. A couple stories coming out of the draft that were interesting. A lot of conversation about the players that were paired with college teammates. Let's see here. There was Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, of course, got paired back together. Tua and Jalen Waddle are together in Miami. Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, and Landon Dickerson all together in Philadelphia. And then, of course, Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne together in Jacksonville. I'm sure there were other players as well. But does that really matter, you think? I mean, I guess quarterback and receiver might make the transition go smoother, but does it really matter that you played together in college and now you're together in the pros?
I don't know that it will. From that standpoint, I think making the adjustment into a newer place, a newer city, a newer organization, it probably helps to have someone there. I know the Packers had one of their later picks, the guy from Boston College, good friends with A.J. Dillon, and they, he said they had talked a lot. And he was, it was going to help him make the transition for sure.
Yeah, and it's a good point. I think you're right. Getting in there, making the transition to the pros and things like that can be helpful. You see that a lot with guys rooming up with guys when they first get drafted and things like that. Good point. Then another interesting story was the Carolina Panthers head coach Matt Rule. His wife texted him before one of their picks and said, you need to come home with Hubbard, Chuba Hubbard, the running back from Oklahoma State. They drafted him 9 picks later. And Matt Rule said, can't give all the credit to his wife as he was a player on their board and they had considered taking with their previous pick as well. But I guess Chuba Hubbard ran all over Baylor when Matt Rule was there. Chuba Hubbard from Oklahoma State. And so they end up coming through with it, and they said that Rule's wife texted and said, you need to make sure you get them. So that's an interesting story, and I'm surprised they even shared it with us, honestly, because those are the kind of things that can get some ridicule. But good job by Carolina making Matt Rule's wife happy, bringing Chubba Hubbard into the organization as well. All right. We got 3 segments today that we're going to do, Dad. The first segment we're going to call the front burner. We're going to do that one in just a second, and we're going to talk about the winners and the losers here in the organization, in the NFL draft, people that we think landed well in the NFL draft, and those that we thought lost in the NFL draft. Then we're going to do a segment called the back burner, and we're going to be talking about the quarterbacks in the draft, and then we're going to close out the episode today with what's simmering. It's something that we've had a chance to think about for a little bit, and that's going to be the Aaron Rodgers situation and everything going down with him as well. So let's kick it off. Our first segment of the day is the front burner. The front burner is presented by Skull Candy. Discover life at full volume with headphones, earbuds, speakers, and more. Skull Candy is your one-stop shop for new music, culture, and audio built to stay loud. And we have in the podcast notes the link for you there for Skull Candy. Go and get yourself a new set of headphones or earbuds. I've got my Skull Candy headphones on right now. And they are the presenting sponsors for this opening segment called the front burner. Dad, we're talking about winners and losers. So here's how we're going to do it. I'm going to let you give me one of your winners. Then I'll take a winner. We'll go back and forth until our winners are completed. So who's your first winner of the draft?
I would think the Chargers. That was one that I think did extremely well. I think the fact that they got Slater is going to be a real help. The people thought he could go earlier, might not be there. Got a good corner with their second pick, and it just seems like they filled out needs. There were several teams we had talked about before the draft that they just need to take the best player available, and I think the Chargers did that, and it looked to me there's potential. It worked out well for them.
Yeah, I liked their top 5 picks. Rashawn Slater, they didn't have to trade up for, which was phenomenal. Asante Samuel Jr. fell to him in the second round. Josh Palmer, the Tennessee wide receiver, solid receiver in the third round. Trey McKitty from Georgia, a tight end. I don't know a whole lot about him. And then Chris Rumpf, the outside linebacker from Duke in round 4. All really, really solid picks for sure. I agree with you on that one. My first winner of the draft is the Miami Dolphins. We agreed on this one as well. Miami had, I think, a really good draft. Jalen Waddle, the wide receiver, and then Jalen Phillips, the rush end or edge rusher in the first round. Then in the second round, they get Javon Holland, a very versatile safety, and they also get an offensive lineman, Liam Eichenberg, who I really liked from Notre Dame. The third round, they get Boston College tight end Hunter Long, one of the top 3 tight ends in the draft. So in my opinion, I thought Miami had a really solid draft. They're a winner on my board as well. Who's your next winner?
Would be, I agreed with Miami. Then after that would be Atlanta. They were able to get Pitts, which of course I think, could be one of the best people in this draft. But it seemed like they were solid after that with a safety. They were able to get Mayfield in the third round, which he has potential. There with a big offensive lineman. They picked another offensive lineman up later. Like I said, they got the safety. They got a couple corners. And again, it seems like for his first draft, Smith, I think they potentially came out pretty well.
Yeah, I thought they were okay. They were not in my list of winners. I did like their top 3 picks with Pitts, Richie Grant, and Jalen Mayfield. I didn't feel like they filled all their needs. They still have a lot of needs with linebacker. Running back's a big need. They had a chance to fill that need and chose to go a different direction. But not a bad draft, just not in my winners category. My next one is the New York Jets. I really like what they did. I felt like, especially early on in this draft, they had just things kind of rolling for them as it was going. They get their quarterback of the future, Zach Wilson. I would have taken Justin Fields, but that's the guy they liked. They did a lot of research on him. Then they get Elijah Vera Tucker. They trade up to get him. Elijah Moore, who I heard consistently was the fourth best wide receiver, he falls to the second round. Then they get Michael Carter, who is a really, really good running back from North Carolina as well. They get a lot of defensive help late in the draft in their fifth and sixth round also. So I put the New York Jets as a winner for me as well. What about you, Dad? Who's your next winner?
Be probably Carolina. Again, I think they did well. Of course, you talked about Chuba Hubbard, but I think Horn was a really good pick. They got him there again without having to move. Marshall should be a really good pick there from the second round, and they got some offensive linemen. And again, they were a team that just needed to add some good players, and they added a variety of positions, and I think that'll help them.
Yeah, they even picked up a long snapper in the draft. Phil Hoskins, late seventh round pick from Kentucky. I got to see him this past year. He's a pretty decent defensive lineman. They also got Davion Nixon from Iowa, defensive tackle. I love their first two picks with Horn and Marshall. I think Terrace Marshall is going to be an awesome pickup for them, considering that their two top wide receivers are both due for big contracts after this season. I'm not sure they can keep them both, so great to add a good receiver on there as well. My last winner is, surprisingly enough, Dad, the Tennessee Titans. I was really impressed with their draft. Caleb Farley, yes, he's a big risk, but if he's healthy, if they can get him healthy, he's supposed to be the top corner or one of the top corners in this draft. They get him at pick 22. They pick up the offensive tackle from North Dakota State in round 2 with Dylan Radunz. Then late in the third round, they get Elijah Molden, the cornerback from Washington. So if Farley doesn't work out health-wise, Molden's really good. I think he's going to fill a need there. They got some big size at wide receiver in Des Fitzgerald in Louisville. I thought overall it was a good, not the best. They were number 4 on my list, but I thought a really good draft for them. Do you have any other winners on the draft?
I would have a team that historically has struggled with the draft lately, but I thought the Cleveland Browns did well. Of course, their first 2 picks, I think Newsome was a great pick. And the linebacker from Notre Dame, we were talking during the draft about him falling, and they were able to get him. Again, so they got a variety of players at different positions, which, again, should help them. I don't know a lot about all those guys, but it looked like they had a good draft. So
I agree. Greg Newsome, an awesome pick at pick 26. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah at pick 20 in the second round. Was an amazing pick. That's a steal, I think. People said that the reason why Owusu-Koramoah fell was because teams were worried because Arizona could not find a fit for Simmons last year. Same physical traits as far as size goes. And, I mean, that's just silly. You got to be a good enough coach to make talent work. Anthony Schwartz, the receiver out of Auburn, and James Hudson, the lineman out of Cincinnati, I thought their top 4 picks were phenomenal. And they were a team that was fortunate. If they didn't really have big needs, they were able just to kind of go with whatever. And actually, Newsome and Koramoah fills some needs for them at the same time, as little as those needs were. So I think I think that's a good pick by Cleveland. All right, let's go to losers. You got 2, I got 3. So I'm going to go first. My first loser in this draft is the New York Football Giants. I thought they kind of blew it in the first round. They traded down. They ended up getting Kadarius Toney. Wide receiver just wasn't a need for him. Devontae Smith would have been a great pickup because of his talent, but I didn't think it made sense for them to go Kadarius Toney in the first round. I do like Azeez Ojulari from Georgia that they got in the second round. But to me, their needs were far, far more than what they actually brought in. I'm not sure how much they actually helped their team this year. And they're a team that needs to build for this year, win now with Daniel Jones at quarterback. Who's your first loser of the draft?
It would be New Orleans. I was really surprised. Again, it's a team that had some needs and could have spread stuff around. They took a guy that was not projected in the first round, passed up on some guys there for that. And just didn't seem to do a lot. The quarterback from Notre Dame, I'm not sure I understand that as high as they went on him. And just didn't, to me, I don't see any splashes on theirs at all. Now, it may turn out being great. I don't know.
Yeah, Peyton Turner's going to have to be phenomenal because that was a big surprise. I was live on the air when they drafted Peyton Turner. He was not on my list, not for a first-round pick, not anywhere close to the first round for me. So I had to go searching very, very quickly to get some information on him. Now, they did get in the 6th round Landon Young, Kentucky offensive lineman, and this kid is a phenomenal football player. He's going to end up being in the league for a long, long time. But so I think that was good value there for in the 6th round. But you're right, Peyton Turner at 1, Pete Warner in the 2nd round, Paulson Adebo is a decent corner out of Stanford at 3 in the 3rd round, but an interesting draft, needless to say, for New Orleans. My second team that I consider a loser in this draft is the Washington football team. I do like the Jamin Davis pick at number 19. But after that, I just didn't think they did a great job of finding the value there. Samuel Cosme, there's lots of mixed emotions on him. Benjamin St. Juste from Minnesota is an interesting player. They got him via trade. And then I don't know, to me it wasn't an impressive trade. And that division, there's opportunity right now for any team in that division just to take hold. And I'm not sure that Washington did this overall in their draft. Not a horrible draft necessarily, just one that I thought they could have done better than they did. Dad, who's your other loser of the draft?
It would be Houston, and of course they didn't have a lot of picks, so they didn't have a lot to work with. The quarterback makes some sense, but they had lots of needs. And again, I don't know that there was anybody there. The wide receiver from Michigan may end up being good, but I'm sure all those guys will get a chance to play, but I don't know how much of an upgrade all that was. So,
yeah, they had 2 3rd rounds, 2 5th rounds, and 1 6th round pick this year. I love the Davis Mills pick. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Outside of that, Nico Collins, okay, I guess. You're right. I don't know that they got a whole lot better, and it's hard to with only 5 picks and none of them in the first 2 rounds. It's not going to be easy to improve. But we'll talk more about Davis Mills in just a moment there. My last team that I have as a loser in the NFL draft is the Green Bay Packers. We talked about this a lot, me and you, throughout the weekend. You are a little bit more optimistic than I am. Eric Stokes, I thought, was a major reach, and I thought there were better players available, especially Asante Samuels there at that pick. Josh Myers, not impressed with that pick either. I thought there were better linemen on the board, especially Reed Humphrey. Amari Rodgers, I think, is a good pick in the 3rd round with wide receiver. And then after that, I just, it's a wait and see. Shamar James Charles from Appalachian State supposedly is a pretty good pick. They finally got an inside linebacker with Isaiah McDuffie in the 6th round. But to me, this was just not a great draft. And when the news came out at the beginning of the draft or a couple hours before the draft that there was issues with Rodgers, to me, they needed to win this draft, and I don't think they did it. But as with all these teams go and these drafts go, you really don't know right now who won and who lost until the players have a chance to play, and then from there we can kind of see where it goes. These are just our opinions coming in into the draft. There, those are our winners or losers, and this has been our first segment, the Front Burner, presented by Skull Candy. Make sure you go visit the link that's provided for you in the podcast notes to get your next set of headphones or earbuds from Skull Candy. All right, Dad, it's time to move to our second segment of the day, and that is the back burner, where we're going to discuss the quarterbacks in the draft. Let's get to the back burner. All right, the back burner is presented by Blue Coolers. At Blue Coolers, they provide high-quality, roto-molded 10-day ice coolers, drinkware, and other outdoor products. They aim to provide quality, high-performance products at a fraction of the price of the leading brands. Some have even called them the Yeti Killer. Their products are rugged, durable, heavily insulated, and come with a 5-year warranty. Go visit Blue Coolers with the link provided in the podcast notes, and you can get your next cooler, maybe your last cooler, through Blue Coolers today. All right, Dad, let's talk about quarterbacks in the draft. There were 10 total quarterbacks drafted, 5 in the first round, and then the other 5 went later on in the draft. So let's start with the top 5. Lawrence and Wilson, there's not a whole lot to talk about. We've already talked about them. We knew they were going 1 and 2 the whole time. Lance to the 49ers at 3. I felt like it was the right situation with Garoppolo being there. They can play him for a year. They've come out and said as much. Their plan is to play Garoppolo this year and then move on from him next year with Lance. Final thoughts with Trey Lance and the San Francisco 49ers.
I mean, talent-wise, we'll see how he develops because he is from a small school and, of course, didn't play a lot last year. I think he's probably with a good coaching staff or at least a good head coach. They've had a lot of turnover in their staff there, but I think that has potential. I'm always leery about when you got a player in waiting, somebody that, well, okay, he's going to be the starter next year and how well that gets along. If Garafolo struggles, which I think, has some potential that he could. I think if those things are maybe the issue there with him, if they're not going to bring him in and play him right off, then I think they've got to work out some things, and it may work out just fine for them. I don't know, but again, their division could give them problems.
How much does a clear plan help, though? If Garoppolo knows, okay, I get one more season in San Francisco, so I'm playing for basically an audition for the rest of the league. Alex Smith knew this as well in Kansas City, had his best season there that last season in Kansas City before ultimately going to Washington. I mean, doesn't at least knowing what the situation is make it a little bit better than guessing and looking over your shoulder?
It might. I don't know, though. He doesn't know, where he's going to go. If he plays well, then why are they getting rid of him? If he does real well. And again, Lance, it's going to depend. There is going to be ideally more of a preseason this season. They'll get a look at him, but, they've got to know he's ready if they're going to put him in next year. So you see what that does. I mean, what if San Francisco's out of the playoffs the last 3 games, or it gets iffy after the first halfway mark of the season? Do you want to get a look at Lance? Then all of a sudden, Garoppolo doesn't have first year. So to me, that makes it a touchy situation. May work out fine.
Yeah, it may. I'm more optimistic, I guess, with this one right now, and it's going to be interesting to see, I guess, how it all works out in the end. And I think it's going to be good. Personally, I think it's going to be good for San Francisco, and I think it's an ideal situation for Garoppolo, at least knowing that what's ahead of him, he can come out and audition and see, because there's going to be teams that need quarterbacks next year, and a 31-year-old Jimmy Garoppolo that hasn't taken a whole lot of beating, even though he's not been healthy throughout his career. I don't know. I think it's an interesting situation, to say the least, and maybe he gets moved earlier. Maybe a team like Washington, who did not address quarterback, maybe they will think about doing it with Garoppolo later on or closer to the season. All right, next up was the Chicago Bears. They traded up to take Fields and Justin Fields. I thought it was a phenomenal pick for Chicago. I'm a big Justin Fields fan. Like I said before, I thought I had him number 2 out of the top 5 quarterbacks, out of all the quarterbacks, I guess, in the draft. As a Packer fan, I wasn't happy to see Justin Fields land in Chicago. What are your thoughts with the Ohio State quarterback going to the Bears?
Again, I think he's very talented. Again, it's hard to say something good about the Bears, but it looked like they really made some good moves. Their first 2 picks were very good. Again, they traded away a little bit to get that, which probably hurt them later on. But I think getting Fields is good. Again, they've got, lots of quarterbacks there. Is Fields going to start? Are they going to let him go through some rough patches? Obviously, I think they drafted him as being the quarterback, but is he going to be, the starter? Where's that going to be? Because their other one, of course, you would think they might move Trubisky, and then what? They've got Dalton, right?
Well, they've got Dalton. Trubisky's in Buffalo now. They got Dalton.
That's right. He's already gone.
And they got Nick Foles.
Okay.
Yeah, so they've got a couple veteran, and they've also said the same thing. Our plan is this year to start Andy Dalton, and then next year start Justin Fields. So that's kind of, they're being out in the open with what they're doing. I like Andy Dalton. I thought Dalton, in Chicago was a positive thing for Chicago. I thought Dalton in Washington would have been a great fit as well. But nonetheless, he's in Chicago as well as Fields and Foles. Those 3 quarterbacks won't come out. Foles, I'm assuming, is the guy that gets the short end of the stick and won't be there moving forward. Mac Jones falls to New England. They do not have to trade up. No one else traded up. There's a lot of talk about New Orleans was going to move up and get him. Of course, a lot of talk about the 49ers early as well. New England stays pat at 15, and I just don't think they could have passed on them there at 15. And to me, it seems like the perfect fit as far as the future goes for Mac Jones. And I don't know how quickly he'll play, if he'll play at all this year, because I actually have high hopes for Cam Newton this year. But what are your thoughts with the new quarterback in New England?
It was a good pick for New England that he fell there. It does make you wonder. We had talked. Jones kind of came out of nowhere as being up at the top and going to go, as a third quarterback and whatever. So how much of that was just talk that nobody else went up to get him? The talk wasn't, well, all these quarterbacks will go in the top 10 because somebody's going to go up and get him. If Jones would have gone to San Francisco, I think they would have all gone in the top 10, but Jones didn't. So I don't know that he's as ready. I think he's a great guy, and I think he has a lot of potential. The only thing at New England is you've got to tailor your system around your quarterback, and I don't think Cam Newton is going to play the same system that Mac Jones or vice versa is going to. So I don't know how much, quote, training he will get there, or again, if Cam Newton has a short leash. It wasn't a surprise that he took him. There's a connection there with Alabama and Belichick and everything. But I think it'll end up being a real good deal for him because he should have some time to develop. Yeah,
I've heard all kinds of comparisons of Mac Jones and Cam Newton. But if you look back throughout the history of Josh McDaniels in New England, Matt Castle had success in New England. Jimmy Garoppolo had success in New England, the short amount of time he got to play. I think Mac Jones, you put Mac Jones and Matt Castle next to each other, they're not that much different as far as abilities go. Mac Jones is probably better than Matt Castle. There's definitely potential. I think it's a good fit. Everything with quarterbacks is about fit. And if you get in the right system with the right coaching staff, that's how you're going to be successful. And I think Mac Jones is where he needs to be to do that. Speaking of right fit, I put a poll out on Twitter asking which quarterback had the quarterback and team was the best fit in the draft that was not drafted in the first round. I put Kyle Trask and Tampa, Kellen Mond and the Vikings, Davis Mills and the Texans, and then other. Kyle Trask wins the poll. 38% said the Trask Bucks fit was the best. 33% put Kellen Mond and the Vikings. 25% Davis Mills and the Texans. 4% selected other, which means Ian Book in New Orleans or Sam Ehlinger in Indianapolis. So I guess let's start at the top and work our way down. Kyle Trask in Tampa. I'm not a Kyle Trask fan. Don't have a lot of hope for him. I don't think he's going to be an NFL quarterback personally, but he's in Tampa sitting behind the greatest of all time and Tom Brady. What do you think about that pickup there for Tampa?
Again, he's got a great spot there to learn. Watching him in college and that, I don't know that he'll be Tampa's next quarterback. But again, he'll get a chance to show and develop, and it may help him get a shot somewhere else. I would be surprised if he ends up being Tampa's quarterback, in 3 years or whatever it works out with Brady. But it's probably a great spot if you're not going to be a starter right now, which he wouldn't be. It's probably a great spot to learn, from there to definitely behind a good one.
Being in an SEC country, I've heard a lot about Kyle Trask over the last couple of years and how great he is. And I've watched Florida games, and I wasn't impressed. Bruce Arians' system is not an easy one to pick up. And we've seen some quarterbacks struggle with that in the past. Kyle Trask, it'll be interesting to see what happens. You're right. And to some degree, he's in a good situation being with Tom Brady, but I'm not sure that Arians is the best fit for a young quarterback either. So that'll be interesting. Byron Leftwich, I like him a lot. He's the offensive coordinator there in Tampa, so maybe he'll have time. He's not going to need to coach Tom Brady, so maybe he can sit and dedicate his whole time to coaching Kyle Trask. Kellen Mond in Minnesota. The Vikings currently, of course, got Kirk Cousins in place. His contract is nearing an end, so they bring in Kellen Mond, Again, I'm not a huge Mond guy, but an interesting pickup in Minnesota. Is he the quarterback of the future that's maybe stepping in the next 2 or 3 years in Minnesota?
Very surprised that they took him there. Again, I don't know a lot about him, but I don't know that he would be a guy that would go that high. I don't know that he's a guy that can be guaranteed to be a quarterback of the future. And Minnesota, I was nice to the Bears, but Minnesota is always an interesting place. And I don't know that you learn a lot there ever. But, it may be a good opportunity for him to get a shot. I was real surprised about that pick.
So there was a lot of argument about who or what order the next round of quarterbacks would go. Trask, Mond, and Mills were all there together. They end up going within 4 picks of each other. Trask at the end of the second, Mond and Mills go 2 and 3 in the third round. And I said last year that Zimmer was close to the end of his rope in Minnesota, and I think he almost got fired this year, but he gets another year. And it'll be interesting to see how that holds over. Of course, you got young Kubiak, Gary Kubiak's son, that's running the offense there in Minnesota. Davis Mills goes to Houston. Houston has major question marks about quarterback. They've got Tyrod Taylor down there right now. Deshaun Watson is in legal problems. A very, very good possibility he does not play this year. I felt like from everything that I read and studied on, Davis Mills is the most NFL-ready quarterback outside of the first-round guys. So I really like the pick for Houston. I think this is a solid pickup. I think he could be starting by week 4. They might give Tyrod Taylor the start, but at some point I think Davis Mills is playing this year. Of course, his college coach had glowing things to say about him. But nonetheless, a lot of people got on the Davis Mills train coming into the draft. You said Houston was one of your losers, not necessarily because of Mills' talent, but just their lack of filling needs. What are your thoughts with specifically Davis Mills and Houston?
I think he would have been the best of the 3. Like you said, at least that was what everything was coming in. And I think he'll have a good chance, and he might do well there because it may be wide, depending on what happens with Deshaun Watson, he may have the opportunity fairly quick. And again, I don't remember exactly who the offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach is there, but hopefully, he'll have some good coaching, and he definitely has potential.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're going to be the worst team in the league, I would assume, this year. I'm looking to see right now. Let's see here. Houston, they've got David Coley's the new head coach, Tim Kelly, the offensive coordinator, Lovie Smith, the defensive coordinator. They got so many needs, and they were not able to fill them in the draft because they didn't have any draft picks. Interesting spot. Hopefully he doesn't get murdered in his first season and he gets an opportunity to play. He'll get plenty of time, I think, to play if Deshaun Watson thing doesn't get situated or if they end up trading Deshaun Watson at some time as well. Because they can get – you're talking about restocking the cupboard. If you get a chance to trade Deshaun Watson, depending on how everything goes with his legal situation, you might be able to load those cupboards pretty full with draft picks next year. It'll be interesting to see. 2 other quarterbacks taken. New Orleans gets their quarterback of the future? Probably not. Ian Book from Notre Dame goes into New Orleans. And then Sam Ehlinger gets drafted by Indianapolis late, I believe, 6th round for the Colts. They drafted a quarterback last year as well. So they've got, of course, Carson Wentz there. They've got a couple young guys there now as well. I don't think Book or Ehlinger, either one of them are going to get opportunities in the near future, but maybe they're guys that get some preseason games in if they have preseason games and show off what they have. Ehlinger was one of those top touted guys going into Texas and never really developed into what people thought he would be at Texas. So maybe he can show something in the pros. Any thoughts on Book or Ehlinger?
No, again, at that spot, Indianapolis, you draft a quarterback and have a chance to work with and, hopefully develop good as a backup or there again, I think Wentz is going to do real well there. But, you got to keep some other quarterbacks around and, drafting one shows they were a little higher on him than just signing somebody free agent. So.
Yeah, the Colts are an interesting team because, again, last year they went out and drafted the kid. Was he from Washington? He was at Georgia before, and then went to, I think, Washington. Jacob Eason, they drafted last year. So they got Jacob Eason, Sam Ellinger, and a guy named Jalen Morton as their their quarterbacks behind Carson Wentz right now in Indianapolis. Interesting. All right, those are the quarterbacks, and that's the back burner. Now we're going to hit our last segment of the day. That is what's simmering. Something that we've had a chance to think about. It's not an instant reaction, and we've been talking about quarterbacks. We're going to stick with it with Aaron Rodgers. Let's get to our last segment of the day of what's simmering. All right, Dad. Good Sports Talk has two people who disagree on a topic, but I don't think we disagree on this. We're going to go Aaron Rodgers. The reports came out 2 hours or so before the draft saying Aaron Rodgers says he wants out. He will not play in Green Bay. He wants to be traded. He listed the 49ers, the Broncos, and the Raiders, according to somebody, and saying that he's upset. He's upset with the front office. He's upset with the Packers organization, and he wants out. Aaron Rodgers, as it sits today, is a Green Bay Packer, and as it would make sense, he is not going to have a whole lot of opportunity to get off of this team before the end of next season, I don't think, at least. I'm going to let you go first on Aaron Rodgers, and then I'll wax eloquent when you're done.
Well, I mean, it was very, very surprising, obviously, very disturbing. I think the timing was on purpose. I think he was upset about last year and the way he felt like he was blindsided, and this was his opportunity to blindside the organization. Will he leave? I don't know. I don't know if he'll have options to be able to leave. At this point, like you alluded to, everything is what you've heard.
Yeah.
Sources, whatever the case may be there. I listened to LaFleur's interview last night. He's going to do everything he can. Again, to me, you and I talked about it. Aaron Rodgers got some strong relationships with teammates, I think with Matt LaFleur, with others. One, I don't know what his options are to walk away, and is he going to walk away with that? If he does, obviously it's going to create, hard feelings. I think outside of the organization, everyone's going to blame the Packers for handling it wrong, which they could have obviously handled the thing better last year. But as a Green Bay Packer fan, Aaron Rodgers is just stupid to go away from this. He's going away. He's got all the money he needs there. He's, a couple plays away from getting into the Super Bowl like that. He makes a statement, and it's easy to be critical at this point. But, the thing about the field goal, and he said, well, hey, if they weren't going for it, I would have called a different play on third down. Well, why didn't you score on third down then? There's a lot there, but they're close. They've got a lot of weapons. I don't think they made any draft picks specifically because of him, but It's obviously a draft that was going to help. They've gone strong on offensive line. I think their offensive line will definitely be improved. I think the guy from Clemson, the receiver, will be a help. I think their last running back is a guy that will fill in a hole real well there. I don't think we're going to know much until he makes a public comment. He may make it real quick this week. I think the longer you wait for him to make a public comment, the better news it is for Green Bay. Because again, I think, to me, if he's not leaving, he'll let everybody stew for a while. So that's what I think. Now, if he comes out, Tuesday on McAfee's show and says it's all gone and here's what the deal is, and I don't know that he can make it to where there's no return, but possibly he can. Again, inside the Packer thing, everything you've heard, there's not been direct communication there. You hear about, hey, give me an extension and fire the GM and I'll be fine. Hopefully nobody would fall for that because they'll be the next one fired then. And, he's a great quarterback, one of the greatest, one of the best in Green Bay. Nobody's bigger than the organization. And I'm not so sure he thinks he's bigger than the organization. I think he was upset, and this was a way to cause a little turmoil. Last few years, he loves to cause a little turmoil with things. And but at this point, I don't think we know. But we may see fairly soon, we may not.
So 2 words I've heard to characterize Aaron Rodgers: sensitive and vindictive. He's a very sensitive soul. He was hurt deeply by the Jordan Love situation. And listen, me and Dad talked about this off the air yesterday. I think Green Bay totally blew that draft. I don't think they should have drafted Jordan Love, number 1. Number 2, someone needed to call Aaron as the trade was happening. They needed to call him immediately and say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what we're thinking. You're not going to like it. We understand that, but here's our thought process with it. As opposed to him watching TV, drinking his drink, and seeing it come across the board, the Packers traded up to draft a quarterback. You just cannot handle it that way. On top of that, Aaron Rodgers holds a chip on his shoulder. He's still, because he didn't get offers and he had to go to JUCO, Cal finally let him come and play in college, and he held that on him. San Francisco passed on him, the number 1 overall pick, and every team that passed on him after that until Green Bay. And he has used that as motivation to improve and get better. Then he had 2 really down years, especially for him, still better than many other quarterbacks, but 2 down years. The Packers draft Jordan Love because Rodgers looked like he was declining. Then he comes out and has an MVP season. Why? Because he's got a chip on his shoulder. That's how he lives. That's how he works right now. The Green Bay Packers have went 13-3. They went to the NFC Championship game 2 years in a row. And as much as Rodgers is at some fault for this last year, it's not been all his fault. It never has been all his fault. He should have run it on 3rd down. He had room, and I think he admits that he made the wrong decision on 3rd down. But they were this close to going to a Super Bowl. Everybody says, well, the Packers haven't given him any help. That's baloney. He's got the top offensive line in the NFL last year. He has Devontae Adams, a top 3 to top 5, depending on who you talk to, wide receiver in the NFL. Robert Tonyan had the most touchdowns for a tight end last year. The defense has gotten better. They fired the defensive coordinator because the defense is ultimately what blew it in Tampa as well. Kevin King comes back this year, but they didn't re-sign him originally. He's the reason they lost the game against Tampa this year. He's had help. He has a good team. He's had a great organization. And now he has what most people seem to figure is he's still upset about the Jordan Love pick. Some people say it's how the contract extension stuff has gone. But I don't know. Maybe he's gone in and did what Tom Brady did with the Patriots, where he said, listen, it's either me or Garoppolo. You either get rid of Garoppolo or you get rid of me. And New England, Bob Kraft said, okay, we're getting rid of Garoppolo. That's what they did. So maybe he went in his extensions and said, hey, guys, if you get rid of Jordan Love, all's good, and we can keep going. And Green Bay may have said, we're not getting rid of Jordan Love. I don't know. That's all speculation, of course, as well. Then people talk about, well, he can go host Jeopardy. Sure, he did a great job on Jeopardy, but does Jeopardy want a guy hosting that now has come out and made a fool of himself, made a fool of the people that he works for? I mean, good night. Jeopardy might be sitting there going, well, wait a second. What happens if we do something he doesn't like? What happens if we hurt his feelings? He's probably not getting the job at Jeopardy. I think he did a fine job hosting. I think he could do a fine job hosting, but I think this is hurting his chances there as well. Aaron Rodgers is a drama queen. He's a guy who likes the drama as much as he says he doesn't. He causes drama. He is outside of the Packers organization for the last 10 to 15 years. Other teams hated Aaron Rodgers. They talk about his personality, all that kind of stuff. But you always just assume, oh, that's because you're jealous. You would want Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. Packers fans right now, they're starting to maybe think maybe we don't want Aaron Rodgers as our quarterback. Not because of talent. He's still the best in the NFL talent-wise, and you put him there with Mahomes. They're right there together, I suppose. But he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He's the MVP of the season. And yet I think at this moment, today, at this very second, Green Bay Packer fans as a whole are saying, you know what? Maybe it's time we move on. Now, they're not going to just give Aaron Rodgers away. We understand the talent that he has, so let's trade him for something spectacular. But at this point, you can't trade him because the draft is over. You don't know what you're getting back. And so at this point, it seems to me like Aaron Rodgers is either going to be playing for the Packers or at least employed by the Packers throughout this next football season. and then maybe they can make a trade when the season is all said and done. Is Jordan Love the quarterback of the future? Maybe. Is he the quarterback for this season? We sure hope not. As a Packer fan, Jordan Love is he might be the future, but he's not ready for the present. At least as far as we know, we didn't see him, right? No preseason games last year as well, and so that is my thoughts on Aaron Rodgers. If I've had a chance to let that simmer for a little bit, at this point, I'm still Team Packers as opposed to Team Rodgers. And unless I get more details that tell me the Packers did something they shouldn't have outside of drafting Jordan Love and making Aaron Rodgers mad, for now I'm going to side with the Packers on this one and hope for the best. At this point, like you said, Dad, I think, at this point, I think we're going to wade this out. And come football time, Aaron Rodgers will be back in a Packer uniform playing for the Green Bay Packers at least one more season in Green Bay. What a sad way to see it go. The interesting stat, everybody's seen it by now, Bart Starr played 16 seasons in Green Bay. Brett Favre played 16 seasons in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers has played 16 seasons in Green Bay. No quarterback has played season 17 for the Packers. So that's intriguing as well. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Sports Stove podcast today as we've recapped the draft. We had a great time in draft season. We'll be back again next week with more content, probably focusing a little bit away from football, depending on what happens this week, a little bit more on some other topics as well. Make sure you go and visit the podcast notes and get the link for Skull Candy and for the Blue Coolers, and click on those links. That way they know that we sent you. Just by clicking on the links, it lets them know that you support our podcast. And then if you purchase something through that link as well, obviously that goes to help support this podcast also. Congratulations, everyone, on a great draft weekend. We look forward to what is ahead in the football season. And now we've got coming up on NBA playoffs, coming up on NHL playoffs. Major League Baseball is in full tilt right now as well. And we will continue to bring you the best content at all possible. Thank you so much for tuning into today's Sports Stove podcast. Until next time, we'll see you around the sports